I'm 75 years old now. It's a strange number to say out loud because, in my head, I still feel like that 30-year-old man who thought he had all the time in the world. But my hands tell a different story. They're thin now, the skin like parchment, and they shake just a little when I pour my coffee in the morning. I spend a lot of time sitting in this chair by the window, watching the neighborhood wake up and go to sleep. And lately, I've been thinking about a specific span of time. 48 years. That's how long it took me to understand something that was sitting right in front of my face the whole time. I'm not telling you this because I want your pity, or because I think I'm particularly wise. I'm telling you this because I'm tired of carrying it. When you get to my age, you realize that your secrets don't have much value anymore. They just become a weight you'd rather put down before you can't carry anything at all. I remember being 27. That was 48 years ago. I was just starting out, really. I had a decent job in middle management, a small house with a mortgage that felt like a mountain, and a wife, Sarah, who was the kindest person I've ever known. At 27, you don't think about the end. You think about the next promotion, the next paycheck, the next house, the next vacation. You live in a state of constant preparation for a life that you assume is going to start someday in the future. I worked hard. I want to be clear about that. I wasn't lazy or a bad man. I thought I was doing exactly what a man was supposed to do. I'd get to the office at 7 in the morning and I wouldn't leave until 7 or 8 at night. I told myself I was building a foundation. I told Sarah that these long hours were just for a season. Just until this project is over, I'd say. Or just until the bonus comes through. The thing about seasons is that they have a way of blurring into decades if you aren't careful. You don't wake up one day and decide to ignore your life. You just decide to postpone it, one Tuesday at a time. I remember one night in particular. It was a Tuesday. It's funny how the most devastating moments aren't the big explosions, but the quiet Tuesdays. Sarah had made dinner. She'd sat it out on the table, and she waited for me. I didn't get home until 9. The food was cold, sitting under a layer of plastic wrap. She was already in bed, not asleep, just staring at the ceiling. I sat down and ate that cold chicken in the dark. I felt proud of myself. I felt like a provider. I looked at the briefcase I'd brought home, full of papers I still needed to review, and I felt like I was winning. I actually thought I was winning. I didn't go into the bedroom to kiss her. I didn't want to wake her up, I told myself. But the truth was, I didn't want to break the momentum of my productivity. I had emails to write. I had a future to secure. I spent the next 20 years in that same rhythm. My daughter Lucy was born when I was 31. I remember the day she was born, but I also remember the phone call I took in the hospital hallway 20 minutes after she arrived. It was my boss. He was congratulating me, but he was also asking about the quarterly report, and I answered him. I stood there, looking through the glass at my newborn daughter, and I talked about profit margins. I told myself I was doing it for her. That's the lie we tell ourselves to justify our absence, isn't it? I'm doing this for them. But kids don't want a college fund when they're 5. They want you to sit on the floor and play with the wooden blocks. They want you to see the drawing they made. I saw the drawings, but I wasn't really there. I was always checking my watch. I was always thinking about the meeting on Monday. I was physically present, but my mind was miles away, hovering over a spreadsheet or a conflict with a coworker. I was a ghost in my own house. I remember Lucy's 10th birthday. We had a party in the backyard. I spent half of it in the garage on a conference call. I could hear the kids laughing. I could hear the cake being brought out. But I stayed in the garage because I thought that call was important. I thought the people on that call cared about my contribution. Now, 45 years later, I can't tell you what that call was about. I can't remember the project or the urgent crisis we were solving. But I can still see the look on Lucy's face when she looked toward the garage, hoping I'd come out to see her blow out the candles. She didn't look angry. She just looked like she'd expected it. That's the part that hurts now. She had already learned that I wouldn't be there. I let 48 years slip through my fingers because I was waiting for the right time to start living. I was waiting for the retirement, the milestone, the moment when everything was settled. But the truth is, nothing is ever settled. Life is just a series of things that need doing, and if you wait until they're all done to be happy, you'll be sitting where I am, in a quiet house, with a lot of memories of things that didn't actually matter. By the time I hit 50, I was the vice president of the firm. I had the office with the view, the luxury car, and a retirement account that looked like a telephone number. On paper, I was the definition of a success story. People at the club would shake my hand and ask for my advice. I felt like I had finally arrived at that future I'd been working towards since my 20s. But the house was quieter than it used to be. Lucy had gone off to university and then moved 3 states away for a job. We spoke on Sundays, 10 minutes, maybe 15. She'd tell me about her work, and I'd tell her I was proud of her. And then there would be these long, heavy silences, where neither of us knew what to say. We didn't have any shared language because I hadn't been there to build it. I knew her GPA, but I didn't know what made her afraid. I knew her career goals, but I didn't know what her favorite book was. Sarah and I were like 2 ships docked in the same harbor, but we were carrying different cargo. We'd sit across from each other at dinner. No more cold chicken now. We had a nice dining room and a cook who came in twice a week. But we didn't talk about anything of substance. We talked about the weather, or the neighbor's new fence, or where we should go for our 2-week vacation in the summer. That vacation was always the carrot I dangled in front of her. In July, we'll go to Italy, I'd say. We'll finally relax. And we'd go. We'd stay in the best hotels. But even there, on a balcony overlooking the Mediterranean, I'd have my laptop open. I'd be checking the markets. I'd tell her I just needed an hour to clear some things up. That hour would turn into 3. Sarah would go for walks by herself. She'd come back with a postcard or a small ceramic bowl she'd bought, and she'd show it to me, and I'd nod and say, "That's nice, honey." Without really looking up from the screen, I thought I was being a good husband because I was providing this lifestyle. I thought the price of the hotel room was a substitute for my attention. I truly believed that. I thought that as long as the bills were paid and the future was secure, I was doing my part. Then came the year I turned 63. I was planning to work until 70. I liked the power. I liked being the man people came to for answers. But Sarah started getting tired. Not the kind of tired you get after a long day, but a deep, gray exhaustion that didn't go away. We went to the doctor, thinking it was her thyroid or maybe just age. We sat in a small room with fluorescent lights that hummed. The doctor came in, and he didn't look at his clipboard. He looked at us. Specifically, he looked at Sarah with a kind of pity that made my stomach drop. It was stage 4, pancreatic. They don't give you years when they say that. They give you months, maybe weeks, if you're unlucky. I remember walking out of that clinic into the bright afternoon sun. Everything looked exactly the same. People were rushing to their cars, checking their phones, worrying about their meetings. And I stood there holding Sarah's hand, realizing that the future I'd been saving up for had just evaporated. I went into the office the next day to resign. My boss, a man I'd known for 30 years, tried to talk me into a leave of absence instead. "Take 3 months," he said. "We need you here." I looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I saw the absurdity of it. He didn't need me. He needed a body and a chair to keep the machine moving. If I dropped dead in that office, they'd have my job posting online before my funeral was over. All those late nights, all those missed birthdays, all those important conference calls. They were for a company that didn't even know the name of my wife. I spent the next 5 months at home with Sarah. It was the most time we had spent together in 40 years. We didn't go to Italy. We didn't go anywhere. She was too weak. We spent our days in the sunroom. I read to her. I held her hand. We talked, really talked, for the first time since we were newlyweds. She told me she had been lonely for a long time. She said it without bitterness, which made it hurt even worse. She said, "I missed you, Arthur, even when you were sitting right next to me." I tried to apologize. I tried to explain that I was doing it for her, for us. She just smiled, a small, sad smile, and said, "I never needed the big house, Arthur. I just needed you to come home for dinner." She died on a Tuesday, another Tuesday. After the funeral, after the relatives left and the flowers started to wilt, I sat in our big, expensive, empty house. I looked at my bank account. I looked at my retirement fund. All that money, all that security I had sacrificed my life for, and it couldn't buy me one more hour with her. It couldn't buy back the 20 years I spent in the garage or at the office. I had won the game, but I'd lost everything that made the game worth playing. I was 64 years old, and I realized I had spent 48 years building a treasure chest, only to find out it was filled with nothing but dust and regret. I'm 75 now, and I've lived in this house alone for 11 years. The silence here is heavy. It's not the peaceful kind of silence you read about in books. It's the kind that echoes. I spend a lot of time looking at the furniture Sarah picked out, the things I barely noticed when she was alive, because I was too busy worrying about the cost of the upholstery or whether the delivery would interrupt a call. It took me 48 years to learn that life isn't a mountain you climb to reach a peak. I spent nearly half a century thinking that if I just worked a little harder, earned a little more, and secured the next level, I would finally be allowed to stop and breathe. I thought of life as a task to be completed. But life isn't a task. It's the stuff that happens while you're trying to get to the important stuff. It's the way the light hits the kitchen floor in the morning. It's the smell of your child's hair when they're small and they run up to hug your knees. It's the boring, mundane conversations about what to have for lunch. I traded those moments for success. And now that I have the success, I'd give every penny of it back just to have one of those boring afternoons back. Just one. I see young people now, and I want to grab them by the shoulders, not to yell at them, but to wake them up. I see them at the park, pushing their kids on the swings while staring at their phones. I see them in restaurants, sitting across from someone they love, but their minds are already at the office. I want to tell them, you think you have time. You think you'll make it up to them later. You think you're being responsible. But you aren't being responsible. You're being a thief. You're stealing from your own life. I have a good relationship with Lucy now, or as good as it can be. She's kind to me. She calls. She brings my grandkids to visit once a month. But there's a wall between us that I built brick by brick for 40 years, and no matter how hard I try now, I can't quite tear it down. I'm a stranger who happens to be her father. I missed the window where the bond is forged, and you don't get a second window. I'm not telling you to quit your job or stop caring about your future. We all have to eat. We all have to provide. But there's a difference between providing a life and replacing a life. If I could go back to that 27-year-old version of myself, sitting in that dark kitchen, eating cold chicken, I wouldn't tell him to work harder. I wouldn't give him stock tips. I'd tell him to put the fork down, go into the bedroom, wake up his wife, and tell her he's sorry. I'd tell him to stay there. I'd tell him that the report on his desk will be recycled in 6 months, but the woman in that bed is the only thing that's real. Don't wait 48 years to realize that the people who love you are the only legacy that matters. Your company won't remember you. Your bank account won't miss you. But your absence will leave a hole in the hearts of the people who actually know your name. I don't have much time left. My doctor doesn't say it, but I see it in his eyes, the same way I saw it when he looked at Sarah, and that's okay. I've accepted it. But my one last wish is that someone listening to this doesn't end up sitting in a chair like mine, looking at a beautiful view, and wishing they had spent more time looking at the people right in front of them. Go home, turn off the phone, sit on the floor, and play with your kids. Listen to your spouse tell that story you've heard 100 times before. Don't just be present, be there. Because one day you'll be 75, and on that day, you won't care about your titles or your trophies. You'll just want to know that you didn't waste the only life you were given. I think I'll go sit on the porch for a while now. The sun is starting to go down, and it's a beautiful evening. I don't want to miss it. If this helped you see something you've been missing, I'm glad. If you feel like sharing your own story, I'd like to read it. It helps the silence feel a little less heavy. Take care of yourself, and take care of the people who love you.